Listen to this thing, Junior. It sounds incredible. How's it going, brother?
Oh, man, I'm doing fine. I'm excited about getting these machines up on your site. I love your website.
Thank you, brother.
I got to say again, I'm an antique architectural freak. I love what you've done with that building. I mean, it's just extraordinary. I mean, I can't say enough. I love what you've done with that building. Your setting is world class.
Thank you, brother. Hey, for our viewers that are watching this out there, this is Bob at the Wheels Through Time Museum. Bob, tell us a little bit about what you do down there.
Oh, gosh. Well, starting at the beginning, I was lucky enough to meet Dale Waltzler while he was building that museum, moving it from Mount Vernon, where he'd been for, I think he'd had a museum out in Mount Vernon about 15 or 18 years, along with a very successful motorcycle dealership, Dale's Harley Davidson. And he chose to move to Maggie Valley so that he'd be in the center of some of the greatest riding country in the world, the Great Smoky Mountains.
I'm telling you what, this top end sounds as tight as a new Harley Davidson Evo or a new Indian. It sounds incredible. Wow. He said once you get it warmed up, put it on the center stand, put a shop towel over the exhaust and muffle it. He says that motor's as quiet as can be. I mean, with 9,000 miles, the bearings at the bottom end, everything's got to be like brand new still. You know? Dude, you're big. I wish it was me, man. I want to be on it. Hey, I want to ride this thing, man. Hey, Kenny, I want to ride it. Let's switch places. I want to ride. Mario's going to go first. All right, so full advance. There you go. All the way back, like the throttle's open, or just a little bit. Idling. Okay. Yep. Yeah. There you go. Wow. That thing sounds incredible. He just gave us a thumbs up. That's awesome. Mario's a pro, AMA pro motocross and supercross rider, and I think he's 26, and it's his first time, right?
How many Indians has he ridden?
This is the first one. But
God, I want every inch of the film.
Hell yeah.
Oh God, I wish I was there, kid.
I wish you were here too, Bob. Yo, Testa. Woo!
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah.
I want to report from Mario what it's like riding Indian with the dog.
Well, what'd you say? I couldn't hear you over the exhaust. He's motoring up the road.
I want to hear his impression of what it's like to ride a 75-year-old motorcycle.
Hell yeah. He's 26, so it's 50 years older than him. It's 27 degrees out, man. It is freaking freezing. And he's out riding it around in a hoodie.
Fantastic.
Here he comes. Here he comes. Woo! Yeah! Woo! Yeah! That thing's freaking awesome. He's got a big shit. He looks like he's I don't know. You just see the look on his face. Did you get that, Kenny? Yeah. He looked pretty happy.
He's never ridden a motorcycle like this.
That's a real motorcycle.
That's it.
Hey, I guarantee he's the only 26-year-old kid east of the Mississippi who's ridden a 46 Chief. That's for damn sure.
That's so cool.
Here he comes. He just turned around. What's going on, Mario?
That thing is the coolest thing I've ever rode probably in my life. That is the gnarliest thing I've ever rode in my life. It is cool. It's ass backwards. I've never used my left hand as a throttle. My whole life it's always been the right hand.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's awesome.
Insane. Wicked cool. You gotta ride this thing.
I'm going to. I'm next. You gotta retard it. We're going to retard it forward.
I think I'm in neutral.
Slow the throttle. Yep. Okay. I guess I'm up next. All right, I'm gonna hand the phone to Mario, and
Okay.
Here you go.
You gotta wear this.
Oh hell yeah! All right, here you go. Don't hang up on him.
I'm not going to.
All right, what's the tips and tricks here? Here.
Woo!
What do you think, Mario?
That thing is cool, man. That is a wicked cool. But I've never experienced something like that in my life. I mean, that's the oldest motorcycle I've ever rode in my life.
Oh, God, I wish the hell I want every film that they took. Is it not gnarly?
It is wicked gnarly, man. That thing, wow.
It's probably too cold today, but while it's there, you need to take it out on the road and get it in third gear. And when you cruise along about 50,
Yeah.
crank it on, and grin your ass off. I've had it up to 85 or 90.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, it's screaming.
Hey, look at him, Kenny. He's shivering. Look at him. He's shivering.
It wasn't made to run at this speed.
Look how cold he is. He's shivering.
Oh, wow.
I've had
Hey, my first impression is quality. It feels like quality.
It is. I mean, that thing is smooth, man.
So clutch all the way forward, right?
Clutch all the way forward. And then you gotta retard it a little bit. And
Yep.
put it in gear. There you go.
There we
There you go. Now you're now advance it back up a little bit. And hold on. That thing is cool, dude. Wow. And it runs so good. You there? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh. Yeah, that thing runs so good. It's so smooth. It's like,
I've always done, I start the season off, I do them.
I haven't.
You need to come down to the museum sometime. We run everything. We got 400 machines just about, and we run them all.
Yes, sir. I'll have to get your name for Ken and number,
Yeah.
and I'll be down there.
Check all your settings.
Yeah, that thing is gnarly. That is crazy experience, man.
They'll give you a fist bump.
That is like
This is,
what I was thinking about, honestly, when I rode it is like, because they had earlier, like I'm sure the earlier, like their war model ones were probably operated the same way. I couldn't imagine doing that and trying to shoot people at the same time. Like, that would have been so gnarly
oh Lordy.
trying to do that and
So you
shoot
got-
people.
Yep. You got a lot of bike experience, so you've ridden a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's way cool. I get on new machinery and I love it, but it's like here's the deal. I'm a bass player.
Yeah.
But I play an acoustic bass, and in order to play an acoustic bass, you got to literally train from your left arm. You've got to be like a weightlifter with your left arm to do all the compression and spring.
Creating a traffic jam there, brother.
Yeah.
So much you can do, I lose my mind. And it's like getting on a new bike. Everything is, powerful to another degree and responsive to another degree.
Yeah.
But it's the same situation. One is just a predecessor to the modern, situation.
Wow.
And I get on a new bike and I lose my mind.
Man, that is cool. And like I rode it through the snow.
Yeah.
We got a little snow up here, and like I rode it down through the little bit of snow. Like, it doesn't get more badass than that. That's pretty badass.
Wait till you ride the BSA.
Huh?
it's only 14. It's only 14 years newer.
The BSA
But
you got.
But that machine, that was the height of the immediate post-war British motorcycle hot 500cc motorcycles.
Yeah.
That motorcycle will, I mean, you better help. I mean, it is a horse.
Dang.
Now, new stuff will outrun it. But think back 50 years, and you know there was nothing else. There were no other 500cc machines that would keep up with it. BSA owned all the track records in the 50s of that motorcycle.
Huh.
All of them.
Wow.
All of them.
Wow.
And the other cool thing about that machine is it was so successful that when all the GIs came home from World War II, and some of them had run into, you know, British and German machines, that motorcycle was so popular that everybody wanted one. But BSA, by about 1955, BSA had done everything ready for the next generation machine.
Yeah.
And so they didn't want to make many of them. But the dealer didn't care down the road.
No! Come here! Yeah, that kind of has the same starting sequence.
Gateway is just west of Maggie. The Parkway, Blue Ridge Parkway, ends at Maggie, just up on the mountain there. The great demographic of the southeast growing like crazy with lots of riders. Atlanta's 4 hours away, Charlotte's 2 hours away, Knoxville's 3 hours away. And I met him while he was still setting the museum up.
What year was that?
Walked in. That was in 03.
So 17 years
no,
ago.
02.
18 years.
Yeah,
How old's
02.
How old's Dale now?
Dale's 66, 67.
How's he doing? How's
And
his
I'm an
health?
antique. I'm 75.
How's Dale's health? Is he doing well now?
No, he's fighting cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
The fight is the big word. Matt has stepped into the leadership role at the museum.
His son?
Dale's still with us. He's still mentally acute. He's involved in decision making and ideas for the museum, but he's fighting cancer.
I'm letting Junior
anyway.
Junior stepping into the leadership position here on December 26th. I'm going to let him run the ship here. I'm heading down to Florida, so maybe I'll stop down and see you on the way down.
Well, I'm more than welcome, Ken. I'd love to have you come by.
Christy's got some health-related issues, so we're heading down there. But back to your bike here. This thing's absolutely stunning, and you've told me a little bit about the bike, but I didn't want to misquote, so I thought we'd get you on the phone here. And it's an honor to have your bike here. I'd assume this was on display at the Wheels Through Time Museum for some time?
I had it down there. I rode it down there. I rode it up here. Bought the machine about 20 years ago. It's a bike for my birth year. I was born in 46. And I found this machine and bought it immediately when I realized that when I first saw it, it had 5,200 miles on it.
Which is unheard of for a 46. And how did that happen?
Ken, I was at the right place at the right time with the right interest. The fellow that bought the bike originally was a Shriner. He ordered it from Indian as a sidecar rig, and he rode it in Shriner's parades, and that's it. He had it about 25 or 30 years, and in the late 60s, he made a deal and sold it to another fellow, a fellow named, the second owner was a guy named McLean, also a Shriner, and he continued doing the same thing with it. And between the two of them, they only put 5,200 miles on it.
Bob, that's just remarkable. And you know, we have quite a selection of Indians down in the museum, and later in the video, or depending on how Kenny edits it, it may be earlier in the video, but we're going to have this on display downstairs with the museum Indians we have. Our Indians are all restored. What I find really remarkable about your bike is It has the original petcocks on it. It's got the original cylinders, jugs, exhaust. This bike is all original, with the exception of the paint job, which is absolutely remarkable. And I know you guys, our museum's been up since 13. Yours has been up since '02. I believe you guys have a bigger selection of vintage bikes down there, and an extra 10 years in the industry than we do. How many original 46 Indians do you think still exist in your? I mean, obviously you own this bike. You know a lot about them. What is your opinion on that? And what were the production stats?
The rule of thumb that we use on bikes, and of course the older it gets, the harder it is to really know. But for bikes that are 50 or 75 years old, this one's 74. Figure that 90% of them have been ridden either into the ground, into the parts bucket, or if they're still in operating condition, they're way down. And so original bikes that operate are maybe 1 out of every 10. Original bikes that operate that have this kind of low mileage are nearly unheard of. I mean,
so is this this is the lowest original mileage Indian that I've seen yet. Now these bikes were ridden a lot because they were so reliable and they're bulletproof. So most of them got tens and some hundreds of thousands of miles. So the fact that this was a Shriner's bike used in parades and then ended up with you at the museum is remarkable. I guess I need to ask, what is not original on this bike? Because everything I see running gear wise, besides the tires, looks original. What can you identify as?
It's got new Avons, and of course the paint is 60 years old, but it's a repaint. But it's a 60-year-old repaint job, 55, 57-year-old repaint job.
So a 60-year-old paint job looks brand new. There's a clue how this thing was taken care of, you know.
Well, I've taken, you know, the guys before me took care of it, and I couldn't do anything but, as a curator for the last 20 years, I hope I've showered the same kind of care on it. You know, I ride it and I ride it hard, but I also clean it up and do all the maintenance. You know, I've never let anything that needed tended to go by. And the big non-original thing are the front safety bar. It was set up as a sidecar bike, and you couldn't run the safety bar on there. And the horn has been redone. Fell out in Ohio, redid it, and other than that, everything on the bike is original.
Just remarkable.
The seat is original.
Shut the fuel
The
valves
sheet
off.
metal is all original. The tanks, the fenders, the chain guard, the generator belt, the toolbox, the rear fender. Rear fenders have never been drilled for saddlebags, for example.
That's huge.
The cases have never been cracked. The Corbin Speedo works perfectly. It's got the original seat, the original grips.
You know,
The Motorlight lens and the pot are original.
just
Here's something that's not original. You'll love this. The luggage rack, it's an original 47. It got added.
wow.
Didn't come with it. That's a 47 luggage rack. The front and rear fender tips are original.
Front and rear fender tips, you said? These are original?
They're both original. Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's remarkable.
The other non-original thing on it, the coil is new from Greer. And the old coil was, about 2 years ago, it started acting up, and I put in a new coil. Indian Frank, the guy out in Ohio that goes by the name Indian Frank, rebuilt my generator, but it's all original. And it's a 6 volts. I didn't put a 12 volts modern, whoopie-doo special. I used the original generator. Indian Frank rebuilt it, and it's never missed a lick. So I was just very, very lucky, Ken, to be in the right spot at the right time, find a birth year bike that had 5,200 miles on it, and I put about 5,000 miles on it myself. It's just under 10,000 altogether.
So this is the original saddle that came with the bike in '46?
Yep.
That's just remarkable. I've seen bikes from the '90s that don't look this good. Are the
mink oil on it every year. I rub it down with mink oil.
What kind of oil?
Mink oil.
Don't let me. Mink oil?
It's a really nice leather. Yeah, real nice leather treatment.
That's incredible. So The speedometer on here is showing 9,294 miles on there. Kenny, can you zoom in on this? This is the original. It's 74 years old now, right? The bike.
That's correct.
And you were born.
Correct.
You were born in '46 also, so it's easy for you to remember, huh?
That's correct. me and the motorcycle.
Do you guys have a birthday on the same day?
The only reason I'm selling this motorcycle, is, you know, I went down once in '67 on a Triumph motorcycle.
Yep.
The fella pulled out in front of me, and I'm 75 years old. I'm about to be 75 here in February, and it's time for the next chapter and the next curator for this motorcycle.
Guys, I'm telling you straight up, you're not going to find, if you're looking for an investment quality original Chief or any vintage motorcycle of this caliber, good luck finding a nicer original one. The fact that the speedometer is original is remarkable. I haven't seen a speedometer of this vintage look that clean ever. It's always reproduction stuff you see on the bikes. And as far as the value of this bike goes, I can tell you this, the only Chiefs we've sold, the ones that are all in the museum, none of those are for sale, but we sold a couple of Chiefs, actually 3 Chiefs in the last couple of years, and one of them was completely parted out. The engine was dismantled. It was basically a pile of parts that some of it had been repainted. We auctioned that off. It sold for $18,000. That bike could never turn into this motorcycle. The other 2 we sold were barn finds that needed complete restorations. One sold for $22,000 and one sold for $23,500. So this bike here is, as far as for me to try to put, I know you're selling it, and because, well, you're 74 years old and you want to give somebody else a chance to enjoy the bike, and I understand that. And but as far as for me to put a value on, I got to give it some thought. But it's I'm gonna have to say it's pretty much priceless, because you can't find another original one like this that runs as good as this. With the original seat on it. Come on, they're just not out there, guys. So if you're watching this and you want to bid on this Indian, bid high and bid often, because all you're gonna find is refurbished with aftermarket. Of questionable history bikes out there. There's just not a lot of original stuff like this.
Restored examples of late Chiefs were selling for record numbers this year at Meekum. So I'll pull up some auction results.
Yeah, we'll have some comparables on there. So, you know, I know it's sad to see it go, and I wish we had the funds to buy it here for the museum. And if somebody buys this bike and they want to leave it in the New England Motorcycle Museum here in Connecticut, we'd be honored to put this at the front of our Indian display. And I'm pretty sure Dale at Wheels Through Time, would he allow them to store it there too if they're down south?
Oh yeah. It's been on the floor down there a lot of times.
Awesome.
And you know, we often put it side by side with the 40 model that got restored. It was a very nice bike to start with, and a guy named Clem Murdahl, who Clem won all kinds of races in the 50s and 60s. He won the Jack Pine sidecar stuff and was in Cycle magazine in '51. We got that motorcycle in the museum, and he's got a 40 model that he restored, and we put the 2 side by side, and you cannot tell the one from the other in terms of quality. But Murdahl's was restored, mine wasn't.
Yeah, they're only original once.
Yeah, that's right.
So are you
very lucky.
Where are you now? Are you up here, or are you down south?
I'm in Western North Carolina. My wife and I are retired here to Western North Carolina. I'm about an hour and a half away from the museum.
I hope to see you down there. We're going to be down there probably the first week of January. Definitely going to check out your museum down there. So I'll give you a heads up when we're coming down there, and hopefully I'll have a big suitcase full of cash for your Indian here. I'm sure there's no shortage of people out there that know the provenance and history of the Wheels Through Time Museum, and who know us. And hey guys, where else are you going to find an Indian that not one but 2 museums are verifying that this is the real deal? And
right.
It is full provenance, 3-owner bike. The original owner who used it for mostly parades, and then the second owner, and now Bob has owned it for how many years now, Bob?
20 years. I got this in early 2000.
So you were younger than me when you bought it. You were 54.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an awesome piece. Is there any what was your favorite ride you had on it? Is there anything you want to share with the guys that are watching this that are seriously interested in purchasing this bike? Anything that would help them make a decision, purchasing decision?
Ken, the sickle will cruise the Blue Ridge Parkway at 45 miles an hour, and the new machines with the guys that come out that want to run hard and run fast will beat me to wherever it is we're going, but I guarantee you, riding a flathead, an original flathead, on that setting on those mountaintops, just cruising 45 miles an hour, the speed limit on the Parkway, is like nothing else. The other thing you do, it's a smile machine. You take it out and do a run on any of the scenic drives that Western North Carolina and Connecticut are full of. And you run into people that are bikers, and you run into people that have never seen an Indian, and you stop for gas or stop for lunch, and in between, the rides on that flathead are just priceless. For my part, when I get out and get in that groove, running along at 50, 55, 58 miles an hour, which is the machine's comfort place. Think about it. It's a 74-year-old machine. Doesn't have roads like we've got now. In the late 40s. And you put that machine in its groove, and every ride you take on it is a gas. I mean, there's no other way to say it. So picking a favorite ride, what Dale often says, and I agree with him, the last ride I took.
That's awesome. And it's a comfortable.
What else can you say?
And it's a comfortable ride too. The tires have a very large sidewall on them, so the tires absorb. And the seat has, it's got to have how many inches of travel just on the seat spring?
It's got a couple of three. It doesn't bottom out. I weigh 200 pounds. The machine it's made for comfort. It's like, what is it? The old rock and roll song from the blues song from the 50s. I'm made for comfort, honey. I ain't made for speed.
And it's got the rear suspension over by the rear axle too. It's got a little bit of.
They changed over from hardtail before Harley did, and so it's a comfortable ride.
Bob, what can you tell us about this year 46? This was a special year for the Indian also.
It was a real special year. Indian was having trouble. I mean, all through the 30s, Indian made some of the prettiest motorcycles on the planet in the first 50 years of their career. They came out of the war, and they had sold some machines to the government. Mostly they shut production way the heck back. And unlike Harley, they stuck with their flathead. And I love overhead valve machines. I love knucklehead. I mean, who could not love one of the prettiest machines? It's the grandfather of every machine Harley made after 1936. Who couldn't love those overhead valve machines? Problem or an issue is, not a problem perhaps, there's 164 pieces in the head of a knucklehead. There's about 30 in the head of a flathead.
Wow.
So what do you want to depend on if you're going to get on that bike in Western North Carolina and ride to Santa Fe? I'd go with a knucklehead. And the lower end of the power range, they'll go all day long. You can dog them, you can beat them, you can take care of them like you should.
You said you'd go with the knucklehead. I think you meant to say you'd go with the flathead. You said you'd go with the knucklehead.
I'm a flathead guy. I'm a huge flathead guy. And so 46 was a real special year for Indian. They came out of the war. They weren't in great financial shape. They stuck with their pre-war designs on that motor. That motor was essentially designed 15, 20 years earlier than that.
Wow.
So all the bugs were worked out of it, and they put it back on the market. And I think I spoke to a fellow that was an Indian dealer, Bob Markey, in Edders, Pennsylvania. He was an old-time guy. When I got that motorcycle, I called him up first thing, and he spent an hour with me on the phone. He didn't know me from Adam. And he walked me through that motorcycle from the front fender tip to the back fender tip, from the bottom of the tires to the handlebars, and we talked about what was right, wrong, and otherwise with the bike. At the end of the conversation, he told me I had a real special machine because they came out of the war and nobody had any money, and they made something like 2,000 motorcycles. I think I'm correct on that year. This machine was made sometime in June, July of production year. CDF 2294 number on it, places it right in the middle of the year's construction. And they were just lucky to be in business. And the public ate up the machines that they got, and every one of those machines were bought by people that wanted to ride, and that's why it's so rare to find one in original condition. And that's not dissing Greer and Kiwi and, 75 other extraordinary Indian restoration people. But, they start with aftermarket parts, and they make, there's some great aftermarket parts being made, and whatever it is that they get in the original pile that they buy, and they turn out beautiful, restored machines. But they're not original.
They're not.
And it represents for Indian the last gasp of what was an incredible career. I mean, Indian, as you know this already, and the people that are listening may know the history as well, but they started out, 2 years before Harley, in 01. By 1911, that Springfield factory was the biggest motorcycle factory in the world.
Wow.
They made more motorcycles than anybody else in the world. And they went to the Isle of Man TT. I particularly love this part. They went to the Isle of Man TT races, and they won first, second, and third. It was the only time the Americans swept the top three places. And so, that was really one of the high point periods of Indians' history. And of course, then Charles Franklin introduced the Indian Scout in 20, and they introduced the Chief in 21. And then they bought out Ace Motorcycle and ran the four-cylinder models from 27 through 41. But the Chief was their mainstay. And so when they reintroduced it after the war, it was just a testament to everything Indian done up to that point. And finances and one thing and another led to their demise in 53. But that motorcycle was the last gasp of an extraordinary American motorcycle story. And the 46, to my eyes, and of course it was the year I was born, it just epitomizes what Indian was.
And as you mentioned, it was this engine was a 25-year evolution from the original Chief. So they had worked all the bugs
That's
out,
right.
and it's a remarkably stable, modern-feeling motorcycle. Once you get rolling on it, it's very comfortable, and once you get used to the differences between a modern bike and the braking, clutch, and throttle, it's super comfy, and you can ride all day at 45 miles an hour. The guys up here that are...
You can ride all day. Ken, its comfort spot is 55.
Yep.
Yeah, you can run on modern highways. Some of the aftermarket people make a 4-speed transmission, which is really nice because then you can run 70 miles an hour. But, I like to listen to the birds and smile at the people I'm passing because I've got I'm passing them at 55 and not 70. It's a dream machine.
Amen.
And that's a cliche, but in the case of this motorcycle, it's true in spades.
Bob, up here, the resident expert and guru of Indians is Dennis Bolduc. He owns the Indian of Springfield dealership. In his shop, I think she's a sales manager, AA.
Yep.
I don't know if you know her. She's probably 110 pounds soaking wet. She rides a Chief, starts it and rides it no problem, like she's riding a dirt bike. You don't have to be a big brute to ride one of these things. They're super smooth and reliable, and once you get one dialed in, it's one of the best classic bikes you could have. And something you said earlier touched a chord with me. And it remind me of the Guggenheim Museum, who I think set the path for Dale and you guys down there and Junior and I up here to open the museum, because the motorcycle was featured as art there. In our museum, although most all of them are rideable, there's a lot of artwork out there, and we spend more time looking at them than we do riding them. And they are artwork. And if you think about the value of artwork, what's an original Mona Lisa worth? You can get a nice copy made for $200, $300, $500, depending on how it's framed. But what's the original worth? And down the road, and even now, that's what the real collectors want. They want the real investors want is an original bike. And this thing, the only thing that's not original on it is that paint job and the tires and a couple other small things like the coil. The rest of it, even right down to the fuel petcocks, the fuel tanks, the tins, they're all original, folks. And if you tried to buy the components off this motorcycle individually, it would, because try to price a pristine front fender, price a pristine gas tank, or the front fender trim. You can get aftermarket stuff, but the original stuff is where the value is at. So, and this bike's got it everywhere. Just stunning. Well done.
Again, you mentioned that Guggenheim exhibit. A lot of folks, well, a lot of people may know this. I like to remind people of it. That exhibit drew more people to the Guggenheim than any other art exhibit they mounted up to that point. Now, I don't know if it's been exceeded in the 25 or so years since then. And also, that exhibit led to the production of a coffee table-sized book, a folio-sized book about the exhibit, with every one of the machines, had a nice photograph and story about them in them. That book they had to keep in a pile that was like a pyramid in the middle of the bookstore. They made more money selling that book than they made selling any other book out of the Guggenheim bookstore library.
Wow.
Tell me what the public thought of that exhibit.
Hey man, it paved the way for your guys' museum and our museum up here for sure, no doubt about it.
Exactly. The motorcycle is art.
Bob, one of the things we touched on earlier, I touched on the value of this motorcycle, what it may be, and what piles of parts are selling for. And I don't think everybody knows this, because we found that out through osmosis. One of our clients taught us this a few years ago. The Internal Revenue Service actually recognizes vintage classic motorcycles as an what's that, Junior? As an asset class that can be invested in as part of your retirement plan under your 401k or your single employee pension plan. You can buy a vintage motorcycle like this tax-free. So tell your wife, if you want to buy this, guys, or ladies, if you want to buy this, and the husband objects, tell him you're doing this for your future, because this is it's an investment that you can buy pre-tax. So let's say the bike's $50,000, and you're in a tax bracket that you're gonna spend 30% on taxes. So that's $15,000 of that right off Jump Street. The IRS is gonna pay for in hopes that the investment goes up, and when you eventually retire, you can sell it, and then you pay the taxes on it, but it'll grow tax deferred. And that's a pretty cool thing that John Tylowski has several bikes in the museum, and he's the one who taught us about that. So it's an investment quality bike. Clearly, one of the finest Indians I've seen yet. I've seen beautiful restored ones, and quite often I look at them and I'm like, it's over restored. It's too shiny. It wasn't this shiny when it was new, and that kind of takes away from it a little bit. It's remarkable that the 6-year-old paint looks this good and the bike runs as good as it does. So, Bob, are there any factors we should take into consideration here that a prospective new owner may want to know, other than everything we covered?
I've got a box of parts that come with it that, as everybody that rides know, you don't go out on the road without your basics. And it comes with, spare. I got carburetor floats and condensers and points and plugs and a distributor cap extra. And I bought, when I first got it, I looked at the kickstart pedal and I thought, I'm going to replace that. And so I ordered up a new kickstart pedal. But then I got thinking, what in the hell would I want to take that piece of original equipment off the bike for? And so it's still got its original pedal, but there's a new one in the parts pile. Kickstart spring. The kickstart spring has gotten a little old, and it's a little weak, and I've got a new one of those. That's an hour and a half on the table to pull the Kickstarter off. That needs to be done. But the big thing, Ken, is the low mileage.
Just let it go. Let it go.
I had one guy call me up after he'd been down to the museum, and he saw my bike, and he said he found another low mileage bike at 19,000 miles, almost twice as much. That's the only other bike that's in 20 years. And I don't know how many people I've talked to work in the museum in the last 20 years, but it's a lot. And in 20 years, that's the closest I've come to another original condition bike in terms of mileage. It had twice as much.
So double the mileage, and that was the only other one you've seen. Do you know? So it's kind of rhetorical then, but it's a rhetorical question. But in your travels, do you know of any other lower mileage bike? I guess the answer is no, right?
No. That one. In fact, those guys, I believe, opened up a shop in Pittsburgh, and I believe that bike is on the showroom floor in the shop.
Okay.
A new Indian dealership in Pittsburgh. I believe I'm correct on that. I've got to look. I've got notes about it, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
That would be a great spot for this to end up in an actual retail Indian dealer franchise. So I know Dennis Bolduc up at Springfield Indian. He'll be bidding on this. I'm sure him.
Off the table 3 or 4 times a year and run it. We run the hill climb bikes that were winners in the 30s. Indians and Harleys, both. The whole deal is for us down at the museum is running the machine.
Amen.
So here's one of my favorite stories. I took the chief, and back in I think it was 2007, the Blue Ridge Parkway celebrated 75 years of existence. And so I put on my Wheels Through Time jersey, and I went up and down the Parkway and attended events that the Parkway put on, riding my Chief. I was coming home one day. I usually don't ride in the rain. I don't seek out opportunities to ride in hard rainstorms, but we've been up in Floyd, Virginia, at a Parkway event, and big dark cloud came up, and I was about an hour and a half, 2 hours from home, so I headed out. Well, the bottom fell out. I got to a little town called Sparta, and I pulled in to put some gas in, and a guy pulled up beside me, and he said, "I've been following you for 10 miles. He said, "That's an antique. It belongs in a museum. What are you doing out here in this rainstorm?" And I looked at him and put the gas pump back on and looked at him. I said, "Going home."
That's awesome.
"What are you doing out here?" "I'm going home."
I call that paying.
I'm riding a motorcycle. That's what I'm doing out here.
I call that paying the rain tax. The bike had to pay the rain tax. You're good after that.
Well, exactly.
Bob,
it's fun. You asked a while ago what my favorite ride was. And the answer always is the last ride I took.
That's awesome. Bob, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Junior, is there anything you'd like to ask Bob, or do you have any comments you'd like to make before we wrap this up?
I'd like to go over the starting procedure.
Yeah, we will. Bob also has a collection of Indian tools that are being sold. The guy, whoever buys the bike, has the option of purchasing these also. This is an original Indian motorcycles tools. These are actual 1946 tools. Also, check this out. It's an Indian wrench. It says Wakefield Indian Motorcycles on it, chrome. I've never even seen one of those before. Also, he's got an Indian fuel filter kit, and a repair and overhaul manual. He's got a Indian rider's instruction book for the model 346 to 348 to 74. He's got a brand new battery, some generator belts, some extra, 5 extra belts. I think this is an actual spare hub. A bunch of, I'm not even sure what these are. Are these exhaust gaskets or something? I'm not really sure. 4 brand new Indian spark plugs, a brand new kicker, a set of Indian grips. This actually comes with the bike. This is included, this piece right here. This is a new kicker return spring, because every like five or six times you kick it over, it'll stick down like you saw in the video. It sticks down and it makes a grinding noise. You gotta pull it up. So it needs this to be replaced. Also comes with 2 brand new fuel petcocks, never been used. Some jets, some bowl gaskets, some gaskets, some brand new light bulbs, some bolts, extra brand new distributor cap.
So everything you're stating is sold separately other than the kickstart return spring?
That's correct.
Okay.
An Indian generator, brushes, some more spacers, bearings, parts. Yeah, take a look. Spotlight bulbs, speedo light bulbs, cork filter gaskets, a worm O-ring. He told me that this was a $500 package. It even comes free with the 0 root beer box that it came in. So Bob didn't want to give this stuff away, but if you buy the bike, $500 you can get a tool kit. And, that's what he said he's got into it, I guess. So, again, the only reason he's selling this is he's kind of getting up there. He's 74 years old. Didn't think he'd be using the bike much more, so it's up for grabs, folks. If you have any questions about it, oh, there's also a set of points in here and a carburetor float, 2 rotors, 4 spark plugs, everything you see right here. Just those few pieces I mentioned, he paid $110 for. So I've never even seen one of these tool sets. So if you have any questions, give us a call.